Okay, from this point now we're still on the weekly charts, so we're still the same charts, and I'm just going to give you an idea now. What I do is that I then come up, and my color coding is green for the weekly charts. I put a green line there, there, and there. I also look to see if there's any major points here. This is a pretty major point at 79.73, but I'll ignore that for the moment. And then that's given me those green lines coming back out onto the chart. I'll just pause it and add a couple more around the place. Thanks. I've now added those green horizontal lines to each of those charts, and you'll see that it's got green lines. Some are all sitting above the price, some are sitting either side of the price. It gives me an idea of where I've got weekly lines. From there, I then move across into my daily charts, and now I've got a view of where the green lines are coming through from the weekly charts. For daily, I use pink lines, but we're just going to continue the review of these charts. We now see that the Swiss has come down and entered into a very thin cloud here, and both of its lines are above, and we've had a nice cross in here. This is on a daily chart, so I would expect that it should come back up and test this 11.14 range. On the US yen, we'll bring it up bigger, and we see that it's just in this ranging. See how this cloud just keeps bobbing in and out. There's no clear direction or trend in there. Currently, we've got the lines confused. We're below the red line, but the pink line's above. The cloud's actually gone into a bull formation. It's a little bit all over the place. Now, so I've got it on the pink line, and I can now come in and add those pink lines to give me a reference point once I come into a tighter time frame on these charts. We then see on the Aussie here that we've had a bullish cross. Pink's crossed over the red line, the 9 period over the 26. It's underneath the cloud, so it is a weak signal, but it is a signal so no less. We see that we're coming up to the cloud, but we've got these two green lines in here, and we see that, so that we know that we've got resistance coming up here. We see the resistance coming in here, so it's in around this point that we might see a turn and price come back to either test support at the pink line back at 84 or the red line back here at 84 as well, basically. So that gives me an idea. I know that I've got a flat point in here and another flat point in here, and top of the cloud currently is in that range there. So now I've got pink and green lines going on the Aussie chart. We see that the euro has come back up through. Pink hasn't crossed over red, so we haven't had the same signal that we had 3 days ago on the Aussie, but we do have it on the pound, and the pound has managed to get back up into the cloud. So now we see we've got some tighter resistance here. So again, I add in these pink lines to give me some reference points when I'm working in the smaller time frames. So we've added them into there, and now we also want to compare, is it the US that was getting weaker, or was it the yen that was getting weaker? Now we see that on the US pairs, with it, there've been rally, rally, and a rally. How's it gone against the yen? Well, there's a minor rally in there. We have had that same signal that they've done a crossover. We haven't quite reached the cloud, whereas this has reached the cloud. We've had a minor cross here on the yen, so the euro yen is actually a little bit ahead of the euro US, yet the euro US has had the better rally, but it just came from deeper. On the Aussie, almost to the cloud, not to the cloud. So out of that, we see that the pound US is actually quite strong because it's the first one to get back up into the cloud, and the Aussie US is fairly strong back up into the cloud. We also see that the yen has had a bit of taken out of it, because we've got the signal on this one, just happening on this one, and on this one. So it is also just ahead of it. Coming back into the US Swiss, we see that this has dropped right down into that cloud, and as I said, I would be looking at a resistance point of around that 11.14 mark. That is an idea of how I look into the daily ones. To then give you an example where I've added those lines in on this one, I can then come back down into a 4-hour chart, bring it up a bit closer, give myself a bit of room at the top. We see that we've got a couple of weekly and a daily above it, but we're in this nice bull formation where green, light blue, clouds in this light blue pointing upwards, red's pointing upwards, pink's pointing upwards. Everything's looking bull in that situation, but we also know that we're coming up against those green and pink lines, and we'll be looking for resistance at that point, coming back to test around this area. To complete what I do, I then start adding in blue lines for my 4-hourly. Hope that's of assistance and it gives you an idea. That is the Aussie US dollar over the past week or so, and we see that it is in quite a strong bull breakout, but we are coming up to resistance. Thanks.